So I'm working on fitment still because it's a big project, especially when a truck's never been together in the last 30 years. So what I'm working on is getting the fender lined up exactly where I want it, to the running board, to the rear fender. And I'm putting the skirt in that goes in between the running board and the body. I'm running into difficulties, and that's to be expected. For example, we'll come over to the back here. So the back fender, you know, I widened 2 inches. And this bracket right here wouldn't fit. So I had to make that. This is the original one. Actually, it would go like this. And so I made another one to kind of match, but it's a little wider to add that, but it's the same shape. There's going to be another bracket that's going to come off of here to the back fender there. So I've been clamping things. Since I've also lowered the fender, I had to notch this out to fit the skirting here, which has to still be tightened up. And as you can see, I'm still just kind of working it. So the other thing is I'll have to cut this still and raise this. I'm not going to do that yet till I know where everything else is. The other issue I had with this is this piece. This piece here was normally, I'll show you. This piece here. So this would normally go inside there. And as you can see, this is that much taller than that. Okay? So I decided to try to make one, although this is not the one I'm going to keep. This one is real heavy steel, but I just wanted to see how it was going to look since it's a little shorter by a 1/4 inch or more. That tells me that either the cab is too high or the box is too low to make this way. The cab can't come down anymore. It's resting right on the frame other than the pads. The box could go up. If I made the box go up, then I'm going to have to lower the fender again. Okay, which is not that big of a deal, but that's the way it would have to work. So what I decided to do instead is just try to make one of these that's just a little shorter. That way this is going to bolt to this, and I'm going to probably make this also bolt to this. Since the cab no longer moves, doesn't have the springs on it anymore because that's what they had on them, this whole area can be fastened to things because it's all rigid now. So I could make this fastened to here. So that way I get the proper fitment here all the way around. It'll be bolted through here. It'll be all bolted along the running board. Same with into the fender and stuff. So that's part of what I'm doing. The other thing that I'm doing is the bracket that typically bolts right here, comes here, this bolts to this, and then comes down to this tab. Then there's another part of it that comes from underneath here and goes over. So it makes like a triangle to support this. The problem I was having is that this seemed to be just a little short. So I started investigating that a little bit. Well, I think what the problem was the fender was low. And I'll show you that. Excuse my walking around all over the place. But right now I have the running board pretty well level, where the frame, you can't see it, is level high to this side, just a tad. Okay, so when I which is no big deal to me. I don't care if they're level to each other or not, as long as they're close, because you won't be able to tell the difference. But what I did notice is when you come here in this gap and you see that curve right there, that curve has to fit around this rocker panel right there. That was off, that fender was down, okay? This running board is resting right on the brackets, the two brackets that hold this in, just like the old one did. So there's no real difference there. But the difference I found was that this bracket on the front then needs to come up. Back one can stay, front one's got to come up. Probably an 1/8 inch, maybe a little bit more. So I'm going to put a spacer in between the bracket and the running board to boost it up a little bit to get this fitment right there. That make all kinds of sense? That way, I'll have the proper fitment here. This will all match. And then when I put this other bracket in here, it'll fit properly. Now, the other problem with the bracket is that this is what it is. Here it is. You can see this is all rusted up pretty good. This bracket here was supposed to fit inside here with that, and that's where it's riveted on, blah, 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 rotted off, you know, the same old story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make new ones of these. And I think I'm going to make them out of a square tubing instead. And as you can see, if you can kind of see that, the bracket does not go straight off the frame, it actually kicks back. And I'll show you that on the other side. Here's what the bracket should look like. And if you look at that straight, this is actually kicked off that way. So this one's also broken. So I'll make another one here too to match. This will be square tubing down all the way until here. I'll put this where it needs to be on the other side because I really feel I need to lengthen it just a little bit to make this line straight. This has to be out this far. So I'm going to take some tubing and I'm going to make this part and bend it down and make some tubing from here and over. I ordered the tubing. It should be here sometime in the next few days. Meanwhile, I'm kind of working out all these other little bugs that I see, like fender height. So when you raise the fender, of course, it changes the gap on the hood. You know, it's a little tighter there now as far as the hood to the fender, but it's still got plenty of gap there. I shouldn't have an issue with that. So that's that. This one here is fine. I'm going to use it. As you can see, here's the bolt here. I put a carriage bolt in there, slid that over, bolted on. That's why this has an adjustment right here. This bolt here is on a slot, so this can pivot back and forth. Okay, so that's what that's all about. And that's where I am, and I'll just continue on. Now, I haven't done anything with the other side yet. This is the first side, and the reason I'm doing one side at a time is because I want to make sure I get this side right. And that's the long-winded version of what I'm doing. So, I actually made the bracket. It's actually rectangular tubing. I know I said square, but I meant rectangular. And this is the same dimensions as the original one, or pretty close, as close as I can get it. So this is what I end up doing. I heat it up, bend it, you know. Then I will bolt this up, bolt the other part onto it, bolt this to the fender, and I'll show you exactly what it turned out to be. So here it is, right here. So this all bolted up. I made a flat piece that replicated the original one up here and kind of had it come down, slide down like that to the right height of here. And then I brought this down and I bolted it here. I put a kind of a slot in there so I can do a little bit of adjustment. And as you can see, I also cut it open so I can put a nut in here. Where these ones here do not have a nut, you can kind of see really close, there's the nut zerts underneath them. So they just screw right in. And this is all good. And then I also have this bottom bracket here. And the bottom bracket is slightly bent right here. The original one, it seems to be slightly bented there. And then it comes over, welds on. And that's it. And then what I did for bolting on here, instead of bolting on, have a head of the bolt sitting down here, I actually put a hole in and put the bolt in there like that. So I just put a socket in there and put that in there. I'll probably block off this end. I'll block off this end. So that's the brackets. That's the other bracket. Now this is like obviously rigid. This is like an overkill. It's that's 80 thousandths thick probably, so it's a little thicker than I really wanted, but that's what I could get for tubing, and that's pretty rigid, so it's not going to go anywhere. Other than that, I'll probably end the video right there because that's kind of enough for this as far as time goes. But it just kind of gives you an explanation of what I'm actually doing. I did start to, I put bolts from here into here to line this up, and then I will do a final make of something here, and I gotta do this here. Everything else is set up, and then I can just finish welding this stuff. I'm not going to finish the ends yet because if I need to trim them and slide them one way or the other, I can do that still. Same with the front, same way. And then I will fix some of this other silly stuff that I have. But so far, that's where I'm at.